In a harsh cold rain, a man stood alone against a strong force, but he was easily blown away and failed hopelessly. Before that time, he was in a meeting with his superiors. The commander asked them if they had any better plans other than running away from the battle. The elder was anxious that the battle preparations would proceed without a hitch. The other elder proposed that they employ their strategy with the MURIM alliance. They then assigned the commander to lead the main force and ensure their victory. The commander led his army on a surprise attack on the enemy. However, their attack was quickly thwarted by the enemy's superior firepower, and the army was routed. The attack was so catastrophic, it ultimately decimated all of the army along with their commander. His life continued to linger, but he was dying slowly. He regretted protecting those who dishonor their loyalty and completely abandoned their people. He struggled to maintain his composure as he slowly got to his feet. He detested those who were gifted but ended up being cowards. As his life was about to meet its end, the commander stated that ever since the war broke out, a powerful man who goes by the name of Cheonban had completely wiped out their army, and the leaders had run away, making their allies as a shield. And just before he meets his doom, his father from his past appeared in his eyes and reminded him that his efforts would never betray him, and to always do his best and keep trying. Even the most talented people must first put in effort and always work hard. Talent will only manifest if it is cultivated through hard work. Tang Yu-sung recalled his father's words and denied everything he had said. He had worked hard, but all his efforts had been wasted on the scumbags he had been protecting. As the sword pierced through his chest, he knew that his life was over. His last effort would be meaningless for those like him, who were not as gifted as others. His death would be a reminder of the futility of trying to overcome one's natural limitations. As he descended into the bloody depths, a system panel appeared before him and began creating a character based on his memories. After the process was complete, he woke up to find himself in a room. Yu-sung's father suddenly appeared from around the corner and knocked him. Yu-sung was confused and wondered how his father was still alive. He looked around the room and wondered if his father needed to be included in his plans. Upon being reborn into his younger self, he relaxed on his bed and accepted his fate. As he lay quietly in his room, free from the worry of returning to the battlefield, his father rushed into the room and whipped him out of bed, telling him to get up. His father informed him that he might be late and instructed him to take the registration fee for Cheonbang Military Academy. Upon hearing his father's orders, he snapped and wondered if this Cheonbang was the same one from before. For this chapter, the military school established by Cheon Taegong, a disciple of Hwazin Group, will be described. The school will teach physical and spiritual cultivating techniques to anyone who has officially registered as a student. The MURIM Alliance's reigning martial arts school was the second largest military school in MURIM. The Alliance had maintained peace in MURIM for 100 years. Most children in MURIM idolized its warriors, dreaming of becoming one themselves, regardless of their age, status, or gender. However, in MURIM, it was not always that simple, as martial arts masters were divided into different classes. In this world, power was everything. People born into wealth, power, and talent were known as the golden spooners. Those born into the upper class but lacking in wealth or talent were known as the silver spooners. Lastly, for the people born with no talents, money and power, are called people of the wooden spoon. The good news was they can improve their status through leveling up. Cheonbang, one of the most prestigious martial arts schools, accepts new students at the age of 16. Tang Yu-sung's father worked tirelessly his entire life to save up for his son's registration fee. These events took place over 30 years ago. Yu-sung observed that the world was exactly as it had been, and he wondered how the end would play out. He went outside and felt the calm weather. His father informed him that today was the day he would set his sights on becoming a martial arts master. He wished that his son would do his best and not end up like him. Yu-sung felt a surge of confidence, but then he snapped back to reality and realized that this day was no different from the day before. His father handed him a potato and told him to eat it on his way to the academy. Yu-sung recalled how his father used to hand him cold potatoes every morning when he was young. When he felt the potato in his hand, he realized that he had indeed traveled back in time. Suddenly, A mission panel appeared before Yu Sung's eyes, informing him that he had 2 hours to register for admission to Cheonbong Military Academy. His father noticed his confused expression and asked if he could see what Yu Sung was seeing. His father, having had enough of his son's antics, ordered him to leave immediately, lest he be late for registration. Later, at Cheonbong Academy, Yu Sung recalled the pressure of taking the exam from his past. He joins the line at the beginning of the division. The black flag represents the direct descendants who will lead their clans in the future, and those who are talented in martial arts and power. The white flag represents the novices who only have enough money to enroll in the school. In actuality, only the direct disciples are taught by the school's head, Cheon Taegong. Novice MURIM martial artists like Yu Sung, no matter how hard they try to pass the school's rigorous training, can only be hired as foot soldiers, guards, or gatekeepers. Here begins the competition for the successor of the black flag. All those who have gathered here are not necessarily direct disciples, but they will all strive to become the successor. Those in the line of black flags must take the first test in order to become direct disciples. He overhears a conversation behind him about how the martial arts exam changes every year. After hearing all that, Yu Sung remembered that he took the same exam 30 years ago, and he failed, but now this time is different as he strives to make a change in history. At the demonstration field, a timer suddenly appeared before him. A man seated in a chair then instructed Yu Sung to begin the training. The man was Cheon Taegong, the head of the Cheonbong Academy. Beside him stood 2 masters of the martial arts, Yum Ho, Grand Master of the Spear, and Mapung Do, MURIM's Black Tiger. Yu Sung pondered what kind of test would be administered. Cheon Taegong inquired as to his thoughts on the matter, and Yu Sung surmised that it would be a test of blood vessels and an acupuncture point test. Yu Sung guessed the size of the objects covered by the clothes just by looking at the clothes figures. When asked how he did it, he explained that he was able to tell the difference in size and width of the objects by looking at the way the clothes were draped over them. Cheon Taegong inquired as to the relevance of blood to the topic at hand. Yu Sung explained that the primary focus of martial arts training is to learn how to locate acupuncture points. To practice finding blood vessels in a real-world setting, students need to train on a variety of dolls of different sizes. This is because the size and location of blood vessels vary subtly depending on gender, age, body type, and height. Cheon Taegong was impressed by Yu Sung's insights and wished to see how he would fare in combat. As soon as the training program commenced, the mannequins unfolded their cloth and attacked Yu Sung. Fortunately, he was able to avoid the blows. Even though he is still adjusting to his small body, he is now better at it than he was yesterday. 10 minutes before Yu Sung's arrival, Cheon Taegong was left disappointed after the 69th trainee's failure. The dolls exceeded his expectations. They were bought from Mr. Jang Nam and were very expensive. This device is designed to behave like a real person for a brief period of time when a person infuses spiritual energy into it. It then provides the user with the sensation of a real combat experience, which is ideal for evaluation exams. To eliminate the luck factor in the exam, Cheon Taegong has selected 3 dolls with different bodies and acupuncture points. The dolls respond when hit at the right acupuncture points. As Cheon Taegong sighed in boredom, Yum Ho wondered aloud if anyone would pass this year's test. The man was unsure. Mapung then asked if his daughter would join them as well. Cheon Taegong assured him that there was no need to worry about her, but added that it would be difficult for her to grow and develop if she did not find allies or friends. The next trainee is Yu Sung. His description is brief, stating only that he is from the West. Cheon Taegong doubts that he will be just another mediocre trainee. Yum Ho asked if the session could be cancelled, but Cheon advised against it, saying to let it play out. 5 minutes later, Yu Sung's audience was left stunned as they watched the mere child keep up with the dolls. Yu Sung dodged the doll's attack and managed to reach its acupuncture points. But then he remembered that this was the same situation he was in when he failed his last exam. Yu Sung then proceeded to get below the doll and use a high kick to knock it off balance. He then grabbed hold of the doll's arm, but the doll swung its hand and broke his hold. Cheon Taegong was left mesmerized and wondered how Yu Sung knew the osteopathic arm method, a technique used to break an opponent's arm. In order to overcome this challenge, Yu Sung must first eliminate the weakest target. He is outnumbered, and attacking the huge doll with common acupuncture techniques will only annoy it, due to its immense spiritual energy. Returning to Yu Sung, he suddenly recalled the martial arts techniques he had learned in his past. He knew that the huge doll was stronger than him, and that his physical strength would not be enough, even if he knew the location of the blood points. Yu Sung dodged the doll's attacks, and used his pressing method to hit its side. He then went behind the doll and punched it hard in the face. Mapum was shocked to see how Yu Sung was able to defeat the doll with only his fists. Yumho instructed Mapum to check again, as Yu Sung had been lifting his middle finger slightly. Mapum asked how Yumho had done it, and Yumho explained that he had pinpointed the blood points through the use of massage techniques. It was the osteopathic arm bone fixation method. Cheon Taegong says that Yu Sung pressed the huge doll by its G-sure points with his thumb, which is a massage location that relieves the lower back. Yumho had not considered such a method, as it was an uncommon technique to use osteopathic arm work to attack acupuncture points. This displays the power of creativity. Having completed his martial arts training, Yu Sung congratulated himself and vowed to change his life from that day forward. He was grateful for the skills he had learned from the book, which was published 20 years in the future. Yu Sung recalled every detail in the book that had helped him deal with those stronger than him. He had never felt such a sense of accomplishment in a long time. Suddenly, his system panel appeared before him and informed him that he had completed his mission. Having completed the quest, he was rewarded with a bonus to his strength and a compensation. He was now given a choice of which attributes he would like to take. A system panel pops up in front of Yu Sung where it claims that he has got to pick one of the 3 special awards. The first reward was Little Dragon Pills. If they were to be consumed, the consumer would increase his endurance by 10, and his HP recovery would increase by 50%. The second reward was a Yellow Dragon Sword, which increased all stats by a whopping 5%. The third reward was the Third Eye of Wisdom, which granted the user permanent martial arts and awakened the third eye. Yu Sung was amazed at the caliber of the rewards he got, since they're very exceptional to acquire. He thought that it was the turning point of his life and was excited about what reward to pick. But suddenly, he was grabbed from behind by an unknown person, and as a result, he accidentally selected the wrong reward and chose the Third Eye of Wisdom instead. Yu Sung gets mad and turns around, but as it turns out that the person who grabbed him was Jang Gihu, who we will refer to as Gihu. Yu Sung let out a shout of surprise, startling Gihu. Gihu inquired of Yu Sung if he had been previously acquainted with him, and explained that it's no problem since he's a famous person around the area. Yu Sung just went along with the flow and agreed to his question. Gihu's ego skyrocketed through the roof after hearing Yu Sung agree to his question. Gihu was apparently one of the best candidates in his era because he was a genius blessed with natural talent. Yu Sung smirked with malicious intent since he'll get to become Gihu's classmate who is a prodigy. Gihu turned around and asked for Yu Sung's name. However, Yu Sung suddenly noticed a level panel above Gihu's head and was curious about it. Gihu repeats the question one more time since Yu Sung was not paying attention. Yu Sung tells him his full name is Tang Yu Sung. He glances to the side and the reason for the panel above Gihu is because of his Third Eye of Wisdom. Gihu goes to sleep while Yu Sung looks at him and wonders if it's truly the third eye doing the trick. Yu Sung further investigates and looks outside the window. The yellow-robed person was level 2 while the warrior with the spear was level 9. He was curious as to what the level referred to, which made him curious about his own level as well. Gihu talks to him saying that they're only the ones who passed the trial, but he was suddenly interrupted by someone. Both Gihu and Yu Sung look at the door. The woman had scarlet hair and wore robes of the same hue. Her name was Cheon Soso, who had a level of 7. She greets both of them and wishes them good luck. Gihu tells her that she must have passed using her father's influence, but Cheon Soso ignored him at first. Yu Sung was scared of her since in his past life, she was the cruelest woman known for her prejudice against family classes. He wishes to never be her classmate. Cheon Soso looks at Yu-sung and tells him to stop staring at her intently while she steps on Gi-hoo's back. Yu-sung apologizes and explains that he didn't mean to stare at her. Cheon Soso accepts Yu-sung's apology and moves on to Gi-hoo. She explains to him that she passed the exam completely all by herself without using her father's influence, and insults Gi-hoo, calling him a blockhead. Gi-hoo goes head-to-head with Cheon Soso and explains that it's not a blockhead, but a double undercut boozy Brooklyn fade haircut. Yu-sung stands on the neutral side as they fight each other. Their fight is suddenly halted when their master Yum-ho gets inside the room and tells them that they're both disrupting the peace. Yum-ho announced the total number of admitted students in the current year was 5, including the 2 fellows beside him. Yum-ho instructed them to prepare themselves and wear their black military uniforms, as they would be conducting an induction ceremony shortly, while Yu-sung sneakily tried to view Yum-ho's level but was unable to do so. Yu-sung takes his black military uniform, which was held by the 2 students, and was excited to put it on. Yum-ho decides to leave since his business is done, but is interrupted by Cheon Soso asking for the current trial's ranking. Yum-ho stops to answer her question and points at Yu-sung, saying that he was first. Gi-hoo was second and Cheon Soso was third. This topic resulted in various reactions. Cheon Soso was shocked, Gi-hoo was kinda impressed, while Yu-sung was also surprised that he was in first place. Both Cheon Soso and Gi-hoo looked at Yu-sung out of eagerness and beyond belief. The 2 students also tried to question their rank to Master Yum-ho, but they were ignored by him. Poor them. Cheon Soso was infuriated on how she got overtaken by Gi-hoo and Yu-sung. Gi-hoo was excited to challenge him to test his strength, while Yu-sung decided that it would be better for him to leave the scene. After the ruckus, the induction ceremony commenced, and the newly enrolled students met with their mentors. The mentors reminded them that the entrance ceremony will be held tomorrow morning. After a bit of talking, they were free to go. As the sun goes down, Gi-hoo yawns and intends to do nothing for the whole day but sleep. He intentionally mocked Cheon Soso that he'll have to be careful around her father. Cheon Soso turns around furious about Gi-hoo's statements, telling him not to say that stuff on purpose. Gi-hoo laughs and tells her that he was just kidding, while Cheon Soso tells Gi-hoo to never come back again. Yu-sung could not believe that he had been stuck with such classmates. Cheon Soso sighed and bid Yu-sung farewell before departing. Before Yu-sung departed as well, he thought about his past life, including his comrades, the war, and if he could change his present life for good. Yu-sung clenched his fists and steeled his resolve. He was determined to make his present life much better than his past. The following morning, Yu-sung was seen sweating profusely, having run to the academy since he was late. Yu-sung finally reached near the gate, but suddenly, the guard lectured them for being late and informed them that they would be punished as he slowly closed the gate in front of them. Yu-sung was in shock, not knowing what to do, but he was met by Gi-hoo, who was also late. Gi-hoo assures him that adequate rest is needed for top-tier conditions, so it was no problem. Yu-sung was confused about what he meant. Gi-hoo summarizes that what matters is what you do with your time, and not how early you wake up. Yu-sung nonchalantly agrees to end this nonsense. But to his surprise, Gi-hoo challenges Yu-sung to a sparring match while they wait for the meantime. Yu-sung was shocked that Gi-hoo still thought of having a sparring match when the school gate closed on them because they were late. A quest panel suddenly pops up in front of his face, and it was an emergency mission to beat Jang Gi-hoo within the allotted time of 15 minutes. The reward will be a martial arts technique if he wins, but a penalty of 0% physical activity will be given if he fails to succeed. After the fight starts, a flashback begins where Yu-sung was a novice who spent 3 months studying at Chanbong Library. He was studying about Samjae swordsmanship, a kind of swordsmanship that contains the harmony of yin and yang, combining the wisdom of heaven, earth, and human, which was known as the 3 laws of sword art. The 3 laws of sword art are also the basic fundamental movements in martial arts, which were the vertical impact form, horizontal impact form, and the progressive stabbing form. Each one of the symbols has their own character. With the figure displayed, yin is together with yang since they're in harmony with each other, just like heaven, earth, and human. After reading a bunch of textbooks that even the narrators can't understand. Well, we kinda did, Yu-sung notices a ruckus ongoing outside, so he checks it through the window. It was Gi-hoo sparring with his fellow students and seniors. He was admitted to the Chanbong Martial Arts School by the headmaster itself. He always sparred against his classmates and seniors every day, never getting tired of it. He constantly wanted to compete with other students and only stops when he sleeps. In his past life, Gi-hoo was nicknamed the Infinite Demon. He became the dragon of MURIM who took all the best spots. He was a real genius, an insurmountable obstacle for Yu-sung. That's why he has to face Gi-hoo in order to surpass his limits. He glances on to the side to read the information about the quest but is confused on what the penalty means. Yu-sung was determined to succeed the quest since he can acquire a martial arts technique. Yu-sung was uncertain of his current level, but he estimated it to be around level 2. He believed that the battle would not be fair at all. Yu-sung was unconfident, but he thought that 30 years of experience would be enough, so Yu-sung gets the courage to fight him and tells Gi-hoo to bring it on. Gi-hoo readies himself, and Yu-sung was intimidated. He got swayed by his emotions and decided to charge forward without thinking about a plan, or did he? Gi-hoo blocks Yu-sung's view with his hand and palms his face. Yu-sung uses his thumb to trigger a pressure point in Gi-hoo's triceps. This caused Gi-hoo's affected arm to get paralyzed, so he tried to punch Yu-sung with his other arm, but he dodges. It was his chance to counterattack while Gi-hoo's open. But the moment he punched, Gi-hoo was able to dodge the attack and he strikes back by a straight punch towards Yu-sung's face. Gi-hoo notices that the punch was weak since he's losing his right arm's strength due to Yu-sung aiming at his arm's pressure points. While Gi-hoo was not paying attention, Yu-sung immediately dashed in front of him to perform a bone fixation punch. That sounds brutal, but was countered by the Jang Gi-hoo style counter where he grabbed Yu-sung's gi and proceeded to trip him towards the ground. To his surprise, Gi-hoo sensed danger, and he almost ate Yu-sung's knee to his face, so he dodges. Both of them get back to their starting position and strategize their plan on how to defeat each other. Gi-hoo explained that it was strange how Yu-sung got first place in the trials, so he thought that he was hiding his strength. Yu-sung suddenly realized something about the Sam-J swordsmanship after Gi-hoo's statement. He was suddenly able to unlock a new ability due to the readings in his past life, so he decided to give it a try. Gi-hoo regains his strength and leaps towards Yu-sung to give him a mighty punch. Yu-sung decided to counter his punch by doing a Sam-J swordsmanship horizontal cut sweeping thousand army kick. I think it's just a roundhouse, I don't really know. The kick connected and caused Gi-hoo's punch to stop, but Yu-sung suddenly fell out of balance, and that's when Gi-hoo stepped in to finish the battle, which resulted in Yu-sung failing his quest. Gi-hoo explained that he almost lost the battle, but if it wasn't for his wind technique called Gwanpung which caused Yu-sung to fall, he would have lost. Yu-sung was on the ground after the battle, and he was amazed that a 16-year-old called learned Gwanpung since it took him 40 years in his past life to learn the said technique. As time slowly passes, his sight's gotten hazy while Gi-hoo tries to get him up, but it was impossible due to the effects of failing the quest where his physical activity will be turned to zero. While Yu-sung slowly closes his eyes, Gi-hoo apparently told him that it wasn't even his full strength yet, and he can show more skills. What a humble kid. Yu-sung thought it sucks to get beaten up on his first day of school. And that's where the story ends. This is part 1 of the Manhwa Recap. If you've enjoyed, like, comment, and subscribe. Hope you all have a good day in peace.